To show you a few ways to make water in a model box. Sometimes a piece requires that there is a river or a sea or a lake, and before you begin to model it, it's really important to understand why it's there. And to do that, you have to understand both what the function of the water is, whether there's any action that takes place in it, but also what is the character of the water before you begin. So whether the water is deep or shallow or murky or clear, all of those things help us identify exactly the kind of model that we're making. There are two easy ways to make water. One is using sheet material and one is using liquid. If we look at the sheet material first, there's a few things that you'll find at home that you could use. Several bits of packaging from food comes with a thin layer of cellophane over the top. This one's quite crinkly and rigid, and this one's very soft. But both of those, when you put them on a sheet of black paper, are quite reflective. And so by manipulating these, you can create different effects. The other thing that's really useful is kitchen foil. And I'm going to be showing you a couple of ways that you can take kitchen foil and turn it into something which resembles water. You could just use the foil as it is and make a silver stretch of water. The next thing you could do is to crumple it up and mould it into the shape that you want, and then stick that down, and that also makes a lovely textured area of water. But let's look at what else you can do to the foil to make it come alive. Because if you have a piece of foil and maybe a piece of coloured tissue paper, I'm just going to roughly cut it so it's the same size. You can glue the tissue paper using PVA glue, which I've got here. It's just normal white glue onto the foil, using a bit of water to make it more liquid. I'm just going to fold the edges over to make it neat. And then we have a piece of blue tissue paper, but you are able to mould that to make waves. And if you wanted to add depth to the water, then you could do that by adding tiny spots of coloured paint. I'm using a dark blue here. I'm using quite a lot of water with it and letting the water allow the paint to move around on the tissue. And you'll find that the tissue absorbs the paint a bit, which helps it with that watery effect. And then simply glue that into position in your model box. The other thing you can do is paint directly onto the foil, and that gives a shimmery effect like this. You can still see the reflective quality of the foil, but it has a colour smear on top of it. And the second way we can make water is by using PVA glue. It's very simple, but it works quite well if you've got a bit of time. I've started the process off here so that you can see the stages, because it involves layering glue on top of each other. So this circle here is made with just one circle of PVA glue. And I'm going to do it again on this black card so you can see how I did it the first time. So I like to use my finger, because then you can smear it exactly how you want it. And you let that dry. Maybe it will take half an hour to an hour. Once that's dry, you can put on another layer of glue, and this one has got 2 coats. And again and again, and this one has got 4 coats. And by the time you've put on your 4th coat, the glue has made a solid film over the base coat.